He is snowed in. Dick Harmon, Deseret News in Salt Lake City, wrote an article earlier today. Went up. Who leaked that Pac-12 was talk? That Pac-12 talk in the Apple TV Plus, and why is that important? Dick Harmon, who's been with us before, joins us on 365 Sports with Paul Craig, and I'm David Smoak. Dick, thanks for your time. We appreciate it. What have you thought about kind of the leaking of that information? Your thoughts about it, and then the response. Was it leaked, in your opinion, on purpose? Because the response was like a thud, and even in some cases, a blowback.
Well, it's kind of hard to say, but yes, it seems like that was leaked information at a time just a week after a memo came out from the Pac-12 President's Council that, hey, we're sticking together in solidarity, and it just was timing that this came out, 4 or 5 days later, and it was received with, like I say, it was like a lead balloon, just a thud. People came out and started criticizing it. National people criticized it. People inside the Pac-12. Is this what we're going to do? Is this how it's going to come off? So it had an effect, and it probably had the effect that whoever leaked it wanted it to. And you could draw up whoever sources and what their motivations would be, but it's really intriguing to me that happened just a few days after that memo came out.
Dick, do you think that the conditions are ripe for schools to want to leave right now, or is this, if they don't get this right, then 5 years from now, that will be when it happens?
I think as things go on and on, that it probably would happen later. And the reasons why is I think that the stark reality has hit the Pac-12, that they're not going to get the money that they thought they would, that George promised them back last summer that would be $40 million a team. That's not going to happen. It's going to be half of that. It'll be in the low 20s probably, and I think that has settled in. Also, we've seen no deal. We've also seen no really expansion of the league, even though SMU and San Diego State have been talked about as possible candidates. That hasn't happened. So there's really been nothing that's going towards anything that maybe the status quo they'll stick together. The 10 will be there together to support each other, build what they have, take less, and maybe look to the future for the next 5-year contract.
What's kind of been the summary of the reactions that you've seen or the people that you've talked to in discussing this? Like you said, it dropped like a lead balloon, but just in people that you've talked to on a day-to-day basis in Pac-12 country, I mean, what's kind of been the scuttlebutt surrounding this?
Well, I think I could sum it up by saying people are very disappointed. People, I think, in other parts of the country that have seen this develop have made fun of it and poked fun of it and been disparaging towards it. And overall, it's just been spread out like it's a failure. And I think that's the reaction inside of the Pac-12 and outside of the Pac-12. I think in Big 12 country, I think a lot of people going back and forth on social media have taken their sides. There's a lot of spinning going on the West Coast, and there's a lot of kind of laughing in Big 12 country because Brett Yormark set them up very pretty and made a great move in the summer, a series of moves that really set the Big 12 up in a great situation. And now a few months later, that climate is just not the same, and the Pac-12 has taken it on the chin.
Dick, did you ever think it would get to where it is today, less than a year after USC and UCLA to the Big Ten story popped?
No, because I thought maybe the Pac-12 would be more proactive, and that's been the problem, Dave. It's been that problem for 12 years. They have kind of an elitist attitude about them. They should have made a move. They should have consummated the deal with Oklahoma and Texas Tech and Oklahoma State. Brought them in. They have a problem that they look down at other universities and colleges. They come from a perch of their academic success and their research institution money, and I don't think that on the West Coast they take football as serious as they do in the middle of the country and in the Southeast Conference. I've been to Baylor. I've seen the passion there. I've been in Texas Stadium. I've seen what that is all about. My mother's a half Comanche Indian from Oklahoma. That's where her home is in Lawton. I know what football means in the Midwest to people. And it doesn't seem like that same passion exists on the West Coast. I will say, however, the University of Utah has proven, coming out of the Mountain West Conference, the Pac-12, they've proven that if you give a team some resources, you give them the money, and you get a great coach, that you can win a conference championship, not once, but twice. TCU comes from the same league, the Mountain West Conference. They get invited. They step up at the plate. They were playing in the national championship. You know, the last 12 years, they should have invited some schools. It could have been San Diego State. It should have been some others that potentially could have been the next Utah or the TCU. They wouldn't do it. And they wouldn't do it on basis because there's a crisis of snobbery by some of the institutions, the presidents. And it's the presidents and chancellors of that university and two commissioners, which I think have really caused the Pac-12 to be in where it is right now. The decision-making they have, the reticence they do to shake hands with regular people in flyover country, it's cost them, and they're paying the price right now. And there are a lot of people laughing at them.
Dick, you mentioned Utah moving into the Pac-12. Do you think they could coexist in a conference with BYU? Just based on our interactions with fans, they don't seem to care to be in the same room together more than just that once a year.
Now, it's been that way for 100 years. Some of the first games that they had in athletics ended up fights, and that's 80 years ago, and it hasn't changed much since then. It's a passionate rivalry, and it's one that should continue. It's one that both the fan bases love. I think some of the Utah fans, you know, they kind of thought they're beyond that now. But I think if you talk to some of the regular ones, they love it. They like it, and it is one of the greatest rivalries in the country. It's been that way for a long, long time. You don't even have to be around here during rivalry to see that. You see the same thing with Texas and Oklahoma. You see the same thing with Nebraska and how it used to be with Oklahoma. Some of those rivalries are going around. But no, this is one of the great 10 rivalries in the country. And I think that's what college football is all about. That's what is missing now, that we're dissembling all these great rivalries. And I think that if Utah were to come into the Big 12, that it would continue. It would be one of the great rivalries that league has, and the TV people know that.
Dick, you mentioned that, some of the attitude, but hasn't joining the Pac-12, as you mentioned, been the best thing that's happened to Utah because they have the extra benefits, they have the more exposure, they're able to win a Power 5 conference championship. So even though there's a little bit of whatever those terms are, you mentioned snobbery or elitism, et cetera, hasn't it been the best thing that happened to Utah?
Oh, absolutely. It was from day one, and it has been for the last 12 years. They've steadily built their program. They've had great recruiting. They've gone after speed. They've gone into areas of Florida and Texas and California. They've been able to get transfers. They've been able to get, sell their product. They put people in the NFL, and it's shown in the last two seasons where they've taken on the very best that the Pac-12 has to happen, and they've beat them. And they've got 2 titles and 2 Rose Bowl appearances to show it. So, yes, I mean, it has taken Kyle Whittingham, who played football with my younger brother at Provo High School. He's a great coach. He's a great recruiter. And he has done such a tremendous job in elevating that program and kind of taking from where Urban Meyer had it and continuing that. So that's been great for them. And I think BYU looks at that and say, hey, we can do that too.
Do you think the Pac-12s can still somehow figure this out? They're not going to just evaporate. Oregon and Washington, they're not going to just stop. It's not going to end. But how do you expect, Dick, this now to come together? How is this going to work out? Because they have to have something released and something to announce here. It has to be within the next, you would think, 2 to 3, 6 weeks at the latest.
Well, I think they're going to accept lesser money. I think they'll go half streaming and then have maybe some linear contracts. I don't know what those would be, and I don't think anybody can name what they would be. But they're going to probably cobble something together in the low $20 million range, and they'll try to stick together. What we can predict, Dave, is that some of those school presidents and some of their fan bases say, hey, we're not putting up with this, no. And if that's the case, then you might see a four-corner situation. The best brands in that league are Washington and Oregon. I don't know that they would make a move unless they were given guarantees and maybe a part of that $100 million that Brett got in the separation agreement or some other type of things. But I don't think that they would sign a extended grant of rights contract with the Big 12. I think they would be in it for the short term. But I think the other schools in the Four Corners, looking at the way that they were treated by USC and UCLA in some aspects and the revenue sharing over the past years, I think that they might look to the Big 12 and say, hey, let's go land there. Let's go do our thing there and grow and be a part of a a very passionate league because the passion's not on the West Coast. All you have to do is a game at Cal or Stanford and looking in the stands. People are migrating out of California. That's not where it's at. That's where a great population base is. But as far as passionate football, I don't see it.
M. Morris1 on our chat room said Utah needs to quit acting like they are just lucky to be in the Pac-12 and demand more say. How much say does Utah have? Everyone has a vote. How much oomph do they have when it comes to whatever the future might be?
Not as much as Oregon and Washington. That's all I can say. I think those are the two big two big entities that hold the biggest spoon in that league right now, and they are going to be the big dogs that kind of lead them around. I think Utah needs to look out for itself. This pact of solidarity, it's a great thing, and it's probably what you need to do and what you have to do. But there'll be coming a time in the next month or so, some of these teams have got to stop looking out for themselves because that's what USC and UCLA did. That's what Texas and Oklahoma did. And that's certainly what Nebraska and Missouri and Texas A&M are doing. So there comes a time when you got to look after yourself, and I would advise Utah to do the same.
Do you think that Utah, because that's where you are, not that that's who you're representing, but do you feel like they would understand any kind of unequal revenue sharing if Washington and Oregon said, okay, we're going to help keep this thing together, but we want more?
Well, that's a good question. I think that they love being in the Pac-12 so much and being associated with what they do with Pac-12 football that they might go along with that, but I can't speak for them. Mm-hmm. I don't know, but they take great pride in being members of the Pac-12. And if that's what it keeps to be together and be in that league, they probably would, but I can't speak for them. But I could see because of the real love they have of wearing that Pac-12 badge that, yeah, they might do that.
How much does SMU and San Diego State, the idea of that, move the radar, if at all?
Oh, I don't think it moves it very much, but I don't think, and that's no disrespect to either one of those schools. In fact, if you look at San Diego State in football and basketball wins, they're ahead of Ohio State over the last 10 years. It's a great place. San Diego is awesome. I've been there for the last 30 years on covering football and basketball trips. It's a great trip, great city. And if it is in Southern California, it'd be a great addition to not only the Big 12, but to the Pac-12. SMU, a smaller college, saw them in a bowl game playing BYU this past year. Have nothing bad to say to them. It's a great school. I don't think it has the cachet as an athletic institution as other places might be. But, TCU wasn't really necessarily considered that kind of a powerhouse playing the national championship so soon, late in its existence. But it did.
Oh, absolutely.
So I don't think you should. Yeah, I don't think you should put a label on anybody. Give them the money, give them the resources. SMU can be good.
Dick, the way that Utah is aligned, and I know I keep bringing them up because that's where you are, but if the way Utah is aligned with everybody else in the Pac-12, it seems like no matter what it looks like now with, oh, my God, how much money are they going to make or not make? Is it a streaming only or whatever they piece together? That from the indications is that these schools are all still pretty much aligned together, right? When it comes to who they are, what their goals, what their values are. Is that still the case?
Yeah, I think so. I think it is. I think they align themselves with people that believe the same way that they do, and University of Utah certainly fits in a lot of the portion of the Pac-12 as far as their cultural fit. Probably a lot more so than a school like BYU, which is a religious school. I don't think the Pac-12 is interested in associating or having a school like BYU in it, and they made that decision a long time ago. I think Cal and Stanford were the two that were kind of protesting that. But I do think this, Dave, that if they had gone, they would be in a far better place than they are now if they had invited BYU years ago. You can interview any athletic department head in any of those schools in the Pac-12, and they'll tell you that BYU fans travel. You guys have seen it at Baylor. Mm-hmm. They bring 2,000 to 3,000 fans all over the country. They've increased the revenues from ticket sales in each one of those Pac-12 schools that they visited, just like they do in the West Coast Conference in basketball.
Thank you for your time, Dick. We appreciate it. Are you? Did I hear you when I spoke with you earlier today? Are you snowed in or under?
It's snowed a lot here. I have 8 inches of snow on top of my car. I just brought the garbage cans in when you called me, Dave, and it was hard making it through the cul-de-sac with a bunch of snow on it. But it's a warm, sunny day today. It's not as cold, but we have been hit with a lot of snow, and we need it. We've been in a drought.
Well, good.
So
Yeah, good. Hope you get out of it.
Okay, thanks for having me on, Dave. You guys got a great show. I always listen to it, and you have great guests on, and appreciate it's been an honor.
Thank you very much, Dick. Dick Harmon from Deseret News, again from Salt Lake City. Some of you agree with what he's saying, some of you don't, like you do with us or with how you do today.